I always thought family meant safety. Growing up, my parents drilled into me that family protects you, loves you, and never crosses the line. So when my cousin Leah showed up crying on our doorstep saying she'd lost her apartment, it never even crossed my mind to say no. Leah was only a year older than me, and as kids we were inseparable. We shared secrets, midnight snacks, and whispered dreams about college and traveling the world. So when my parents looked at me and said, "She's family, let her stay," it felt natural to agree, even if it meant giving up my privacy. At first, everything seemed fine. She moved into my room, and we set up an extra bed in the corner. We stayed up late talking like old times, and for a moment, it felt like we were 13 again. But then, little things started to change. It began with my stuff being moved around when I knew I hadn't touched it, a hairbrush in the wrong place, drawers left half open. At night, I'd sometimes wake up and see Leah sitting at her desk, staring blankly at her laptop, quickly closing the screen when she saw me looking. One morning I found my journal left open on my pillow, pages I'd written late at night about my feelings, my crush, my doubts, all sitting there exposed. I asked Leah if she'd been reading it, but she just laughed and said, "Why would I care about your silly secrets?" I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me something wasn't right. Then things got worse. My parents, who used to ask me about my day, suddenly seemed distant. They'd exchange glances at dinner, stopping conversations when I walked into the kitchen. When I confronted them, my mother only said, "You're imagining things. Leah is going through a lot. Be kind." One night, after coming back from a late study session, I opened my room door and saw Leah standing next to my bed, holding something small in her hand. She jumped and hid it behind her back, mumbling, "I was just fixing the curtain." The next day, I searched every inch of my room. That's when I found it, a tiny black device tucked between some books on my shelf, its little lens pointed straight at my bed. My heart stopped. For a few seconds, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Who would do this and why? Hands shaking, I turned the camera over, trying to see if it was even real. The memory card slot confirmed it. This wasn't just a toy. I waited until everyone left the house and locked myself in my room. I popped the card into my laptop, terrified of what I'd find. The first few videos were normal, me sleeping, studying, talking on the phone. Then on one clip, I saw Leah carefully setting up the camera, looking around to make sure no one was watching, and then she whispered something. Something that made my blood run cold. I leaned closer to the screen, replaying that moment over and over. Leah's face filled the frame as she adjusted the camera, and then, barely above a whisper, she said, "She'll never see this coming. They want proof she's as messed up as they say." My chest tightened so hard it felt like my ribs would crack. Who was they? My parents? And proof of what? The next clips were even worse. Footage of me crying after a fight with my mom, me tossing and turning at night, talking in my sleep, me changing clothes, vulnerable, exposed. Leah had edited the clips together. In the folder, I found a video titled, "Emma, Unstable." She had spliced together moments where I looked upset or anxious, adding captions like, "always overreacting," "emotional wreck," and "danger to herself." I felt sick. My own cousin, who used to braid my hair and whisper secrets, was building a case against me. But for who? And why? I closed the laptop and just sat there, staring at nothing, as everything I thought I knew about my family started to collapse. That evening, at dinner, I couldn't stop looking at Leah. She acted so normal, laughing at my dad's jokes, thanking my mom for the salad, like nothing had happened. I tried to meet my mother's eyes, searching for any hint that she didn't know, but when she looked back at me, her expression was carefully blank, as if she was bracing herself. After dinner, Leah caught up with me in the hallway. "Emma, you've been acting weird all day. Is something wrong?" she asked, her voice sweet, but her eyes cold. I almost told her, almost demanded answers, but instead I forced a smile and said, "Just tired. long day. Inside, though, my mind was racing. Was Leah doing this alone, or were my parents behind it? The next morning, I waited until Leah left to run errands. Then I searched her stuff. At the bottom of her duffel bag, under folded clothes, I found a white envelope. Inside, printed screenshots from the camera footage, my face twisted in anger, my eyes red from crying, and a sticky note that said, in my mother's handwriting, "This should convince Dad and the counselor she needs help." I felt my legs go weak. I had to sit down on the floor because I thought I'd faint. My own mother, the person who kissed my scraped knees, who made me soup when I was sick, was building a case that I was unstable. Why? Suddenly, so many past moments made sense. The private conversations that stopped when I walked into the room, the sudden concern about my mental state, the suggestion weeks earlier that I might need a professional evaluation. I realized they weren't trying to help me. They were trying to prove I needed help. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of the spiral. A text from Leah. Going to be out longer than planned. Everything okay? I didn't answer. Instead, I put the camera back exactly where it was so they wouldn't know I'd found it. Then I packed a small bag with essentials, my laptop, chargers, wallet, and the envelope with screenshots. And I called the only person I still trusted completely. My older brother, Jack. Jack answered on the second ring. "Hey, Em, what's up? You okay? You sound weird." I hadn't talked to him much lately. He moved out 2 years ago after a huge fight with our parents. They always said he was ungrateful and selfish. But suddenly, I wondered if he'd seen something back then that I was only realizing now. "Jack," I whispered, my voice shaking. "I need to see you. Can I come over? It's really important." "Of course," he said instantly. "Are you safe right now?" That question alone almost made me cry. "I think so, but I need to leave before they get back." "Okay, come now. Text me when you're on your way." I grabbed my bag, checked the driveway, empty, and practically ran to the bus stop. The ride to Jack's apartment felt endless. Every time someone glanced at me, I thought they knew. I clutched my bag so tight my fingers hurt. When I finally got there, Jack opened the door before I could even knock. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Tell me everything," he said. We sat on his old, mismatched sofa, and I showed him the camera, the memory card, the screenshots, and the sticky note in Mom's handwriting. Jack's face darkened as he read it. "I knew it," he muttered. "I knew they'd try something like this." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. "You remember why I moved out?" Jack said. "They didn't just kick me out for partying, Emma. They wanted me to sign papers agreeing to give Dad full financial control over the college fund Grandpa left us." I stared at him, shocked. "Grandpa left us money?" "Yeah, a lot more than Mom and Dad ever admitted. Dad said I was too irresponsible to handle it. When I refused to sign, they threatened to have me declared unstable, said they'd tell people I had anger issues and get a judge to freeze my access." I felt my stomach drop. "That's what they're doing to me." "Exactly," Jack said, voice tight. "And Leah's helping them gather proof." Suddenly, everything clicked. The hidden camera wasn't just about embarrassing me. They were building a case so they could take control of something Grandpa left me, just like they tried with Jack. "But why? What do they want?" Jack hesitated. "Do you remember the old lake cabin Grandpa owned? The one we used to visit every summer?" "Yeah." "Grandpa's will left that cabin and the land around it to you, alone, because you always loved it the most. Mom and Dad have been trying for years to get it sold, but they can't because legally it's yours. Unless a court decides you're unfit to manage property. I felt dizzy. They want to have me declared unstable so they can sell the land? Exactly, Jack said. And guess who wants to buy it? Dad's friend from the golf club. For development. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of betrayal sinking in. What do I do now? I asked. First, we back up everything. The videos, the screenshots, the note, onto multiple drives. And you keep them somewhere safe, not at home, Jack said. Then you stay here tonight. Tomorrow we figure out our next move. But Em, promise me something? What? Don't go back there alone. Not until we know exactly what they're planning. I nodded, tears finally spilling down my face. Okay, I promise. That night, lying on Jack's old pull-out couch, I replayed every memory of my parents in my head. The bedtime stories, the Christmas mornings, the times I thought their love was real. I realized that for them, love had always been conditional, as long as we obeyed, as long as we fit into their plans. And now, because I didn't, they were willing to call me crazy, their own daughter. In that moment, my grief turned into something sharper, determination. If they wanted a fight, I wasn't going to run anymore. In the morning, we got up early. I had barely slept, turning the same question over and over in my head. What do I do next? Jack was already making coffee, his face focused and slightly tense. First step, he said, setting a cup in front of me, we go see a lawyer, a real estate and family law attorney. We need to know exactly what rights you have. What if Mom and Dad already talked to one? I asked. Doesn't matter, he replied. You get your own. You tell them everything, show them the proof, and you do it today. We found a lawyer based on online reviews, a woman in her 40s with a kind face named Rachel Goodman. I was nervous the whole way there, clutching the flash drive with the recordings and the printouts in my hands. Rachel listened carefully without interrupting. Occasionally, her eyebrows shot up when I mentioned the hidden camera and my mother's note. When I finished, she said, Emma, first of all, what they're doing isn't just wrong. It could be criminal, depending on how far they go. But can they actually take the cabin away? I asked. Only if a court finds you legally incompetent to manage your own affairs. But from what you're telling me, you're employed, in school, have no history of severe mental illness, and now you have evidence that they're trying to fabricate a false narrative. She paused, then added, That evidence is powerful. It might do more than protect you. It might stop them entirely if they know you're ready to use it. Rachel offered 2 options. File a preventive claim in court to secure my property rights and officially report the pressure and defamation attempts from my family. Talk to my parents first, in front of witnesses, or even a lawyer, to let them know I'm aware of everything and won't stay silent. Jack was in favor of going straight to court. I wasn't sure. They're still our parents, I said quietly. Parents don't secretly film you to prove you're insane, Em, he replied. At some point, you have to stop calling it family and call it what it is, manipulation. Rachel looked at me and said gently, Emma, sometimes confrontation stops people before things escalate, but you have to be ready. Once you show them the proof, you can't unshow it. I nodded. I need to think. Of course, she said, but don't wait too long. The longer they think you don't know, the further they might go. That evening, Jack and I returned to his apartment. I stared out the window at the city streets, thinking about how fast everything had changed. Yesterday, I was afraid Mom was mad at me over something silly, and today, I was afraid she might ruin my life if I wasn't careful. What are you going to do? Jack asked. I want to talk to them first, I said. Not alone, but face to face. Maybe with Rachel there. If they admit it, maybe we can stop it before it gets worse. Jack nodded, though he didn't look happy. Okay, but you're not going back there alone. I'm coming too. The next day, we arranged to meet with Rachel at her office. I sent my mother a message. I need to see you and Dad tomorrow. It's important. The reply came quickly. Of course, sweetie. Is everything okay? The word sweetie suddenly felt like a sticky mask, hiding a real threat underneath. You're still their daughter, but now you know too much. We arrived together, me, Jack, and Rachel. My parents came in together looking wary. My mother immediately tried to hug me, but I stepped back. What's this about? My father asked, looking around and clearly noticing the lawyer. I know about the camera, I said bluntly. And the note, and why you're doing it? My mother turned pale. My father pressed his lips together, his eyes flashing coldly. Emma, you're confused, my mother began. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, I interrupted. You're trying to prove I'm unstable, so you can sell the cabin Grandpa left me. Rachel placed a folder with printouts on the table. We have evidence, hidden surveillance, edited clips, written notes. Emma is ready to defend her rights in court if necessary. My father stared at me for a long moment. Then, in a voice colder than I'd ever heard from him, he said, So you'd rather destroy this family than do what's right? What's right? I asked. You mean hand over something Grandpa wanted me to have? He didn't respond. Rachel continued calmly. You have a choice. Stop this now, and there'll be no lawsuit, no police report, or we can take it further. My mother whispered in a trembling voice, Richard, maybe we should stop. My father slammed his palm on the table. Enough, we're done here. He stood and left, slamming the door behind him. My mother lingered, looked at me with tear-filled eyes, and said, I'm sorry, Emma. Then she left too. The door closed behind them with a final hollow sound that seemed to echo far longer than it should have. For a moment, none of us spoke. The silence felt both heavy and oddly freeing, as if something had finally broken open that could never be closed again. Rachel let out a slow breath. Emma, that could have gone worse, she said gently. He didn't deny it. That's telling. Jack looked at me, his eyes full of worry but also relief. You did it. You stood up to them. I nodded, though my hands were shaking. I don't know what happens now. Rachel leaned forward. Now we wait. If they back off and leave the cabin alone, great. But if they try anything else, move money, transfer the property, or double down on making you look incompetent, we file immediately. I swallowed. And if they do nothing? Then you still have your proof, and you stay ready. That night, back at Jack's place, the adrenaline faded and exhaustion crashed over me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, memories tumbling through my mind. All those years of small comments, strange silences, things that never quite added up. It felt like finally seeing the whole picture after staring too long at scattered pieces. I remembered Grandpa's face when he gave me the cabin key that last summer. It's yours, Emmy, for when you need your own place in the world. Back then, I thought he just meant a vacation spot. Now I realized maybe he'd known. Maybe he'd seen what my parents were capable of before I did. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Emma, please call me. We need to talk. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen. Then, finally, I typed, Not yet. I need time. And for the first time, I meant it. In the days that followed, things were strangely quiet. No new calls from my father, no sudden emails from family. It felt like standing on the edge of a storm, waiting to see if it would break or pass us by. Jack kept checking on me, cooking dinner, making dumb jokes to lighten the mood. Every time he did, I felt a complicated mix of gratitude and guilt. How did he end up in the middle of this? But he'd chosen to stay, and that mattered. Epilogue. 6 months later. It's late autumn now. The air around the cabin smells of fallen leaves and wood smoke. I'm sitting on the old porch swing Grandpa built, laptop balanced on my knees, writing the last section of a paper for graduate school. So much has changed. Quietly, steadily, like the slow shifting of seasons. After the agreement was signed, my parents kept their distance. No apologies came, but no new threats either. In a strange way, that silence became its own form of peace. I stopped expecting love from people who had taught me only to doubt myself. Instead, I started finding it elsewhere. Jack visits most weekends. We chop wood, cook simple meals, and talk late into the night. Sometimes about big things, family, fear, forgiveness. Sometimes about nothing at all. We haven't put a label on whatever this is between us. For once, I'm okay with not knowing. I just know that it feels honest and safe. Rachel stayed in touch too. Every now and then, I send her updates. A new book I've read, a photo of the cabin under fresh snow. She replies with short but warm messages. Once, she wrote, "Standing up for yourself doesn't end everything, Emma, but it begins everything that matters." I saved that message. Sometimes I still need to read it. A few weeks ago, I found an old camcorder in one of Grandpa's closets. Inside was a tape labeled simply, June '03. It showed Grandpa, younger than I ever remembered him, painting the porch railing while humming off-key. At one point, he looked into the lens and said, almost like he knew I'd see it someday, "This place is meant to feel like home, Emmy, even when nothing else does." I've started restoring the cabin slowly, not to change it, but to keep it alive, fixing the leaky roof, sanding the worn floors, repainting the porch swing. Some afternoons, Jack helps. Other days, I work alone, with only the sound of wind and the occasional bird call. And in those quiet hours, I've learned something unexpected. Home isn't the building itself. Home is the space you protect, the boundaries you draw, the love you choose to keep, and the pain you choose to let go. The last time I visited my parents' house was months ago to pick up a few childhood boxes. We barely spoke. There was a sadness there, maybe regret, maybe just habit. But I realized, standing in that familiar kitchen, that I wasn't afraid anymore. Their disappointment no longer felt like a sentence, just a fact, something that belonged to them, not to me. Before I left, I paused by the doorway, looked back, and whispered a quiet goodbye. Not for them, but for the part of me that spent so many years trying to be enough. Then I walked outside, felt the cool air on my face, and drove home. Now here on the porch, the sun is setting behind the trees. I close my laptop, wrap myself in Grandpa's old flannel blanket, and breathe. I still don't know exactly what the future holds, but for the first time, that doesn't scare me. Because I know who I am, because I kept the letter, because I stayed, and because I finally learned some things you don't need to prove, some things you just keep.